Hello, Shemai, and welcome to Storytime Live from Abergavenny Library. Well, did you know that you can order books now from our new library above the Market Hall, and you can collect them on Tuesdays and Thursdays? So the books I'm going to read you today, and I'm going to show you some more at the end, you can get from the library anytime if they'll be there. And if you click and decide to collect, you need to follow a little form, but it's quite straightforward. Follow the links or go to Monmouthshire Libraries and you'll be able to work out how to collect some new books for you to read. So I've got 2 books for you today, all about animals who work very, very hard. The first one is about a duck. Here he is. He's called Farmer Duck. And it's a book by Martin Waddell and illustrated by Helen Oxenbury. And it's published by Walker Books. Now, can you see on the front of this is the farmer duck. He's a farmer. He's working very hard. On the back, the blurb tells us there was once a duck who had the bad luck to live with a lazy old farmer. While the duck worked, the farmer lay in bed, till one day the animals decided to take action. So let's see what happens. I'm going to show you this first picture. Here's the farm. What do you think? Does it look such a nice place to be? Does it look a bit gloomy, I think? So that's the farm at the beginning of the story. And here's a picture of the farmer duck, working hard with his rake in the fields. There was once a duck who had the bad luck to live with a lazy old farmer. Here's the farmer. The duck did the work. The farmer stayed all day in bed. Can you see him? Here he is reading the paper, eating chocolates, and there's the duck bringing him some lunch. The duck fetched the cow from the field. "How goes the work?" called the farmer. The duck answered, "Quack." The duck brought the sheep from the hills. "How goes the work?" called the farmer. The duck answered, "Quack." The duck put the hens in their house. "How goes the work?" called the farmer. The duck answered, "Quack." The farmer got fat through staying in bed, and the poor duck got fed up with working all day. Look at this farmer. Look at his big fat stomach. And he's got some chocolates. He's finished this box, and he's eating some more out of this box. Poor duck. "How goes the work?" Quack. He is sawing up the wood. "How goes the work?" Quack. Digging up all the weeds. "How goes the work?" Quack. There he is washing up the dishes. "How goes the work?" Quack. He's doing the ironing. "How goes the work?" Quack. He's had to climb up the ladder to reach all the apples off the tree. "How goes the work?" Quack. He's collecting the eggs. The poor duck was sleepy and weepy and tired. Oh, can you see him? He looks really sad. There are his friends, the hens, looking after him and giving him a bit of a cuddle, saying, "It's all right, we'll look after you." The hens and the cow and the sheep got very upset. They loved the duck, so they held a meeting under the moon and they made a plan for the morning. "Moo," said the cow. "Ah," said the sheep. "Cluck," said the hens. And that was the plan. It was just before dawn and the farmyard was still. Through the back door and into the house crept the cow and the sheep and the hens. There they are, you can see them. They stole down the hall. They creaked up the stairs. You see the farmer here, snoring away in his bed. They squeezed under the bed of the farmer and wriggled about. The bed started to rock, and the farmer woke up and he called, "How goes the work?" and "Moo, bah, cluck." they lifted his bed and he started to shout, and they banged and they bounced the old farmer about and about and about right out of the bed. And he fled with the cow and the sheep and the hens mooing and baaing and clucking around him. Down the lane, moo, through the fields, over the hill, cluck, 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 and he never came back. The duck awoke and he waddled wearily into the yard, expecting to hear, "How goes the work?" But nobody spoke. And then the cow and the sheep and the hens came back. "Quack?" asked the duck. "Moo," said the cow. "Ah," said the sheep. "Cluck," said the hens, which told the duck the whole story. Then mooing and baaing and clucking and quacking, they all set to work on their farm. There they are, working hard. And here's a picture. There we are, there's the farm now. And can you see that picture? It looks a lovely, sunny, happy place. And do you remember the picture at the beginning I showed you? There it is. There's the farm when the farmer was there doing no work at all, and all the poor farmer duck had to do all the work. And here's the farm now. A lovely, sunny, happy place with the animals all working together. So look at that, their plan worked. Wow, weren't they clever? That just worked a treat. Now, my next story is about a different animal. It's about a badger. And I don't know what you know about badgers, but badgers are black and white and they live under the ground. And here's a badger here. This badger is called Pete. And he loves tidying up. He likes everything to be neat and tidy. In fact, he just doesn't know when to stop tidying. And let's see what happens in this story when he keeps tidying and tidying. This book is called Tidy, and it's by Emily Gravett, who's very clever because she wrote the story and she illustrated the book as well. So she's done all the beautiful illustrations here. This book is published by Two Hoots, who again have very kindly said we can read this story to. Now this is a super book because look, it's got flaps in it, so you can see there's a bird. I think it might be a magpie. There's a picture of the forest that Pete lives in, and you can see through it as well. And then there's another picture. There's a picture of all the trees with the blossom on them in the springtime. And then the next picture is in the summertime, I think. Can you see? There it is. And you can still see through it. Can you see? And then the next picture, I think it's just beginning to become autumn. Can you see? There's a few leaves that Pete has already started to pick up. Let's see what happens when you just can't stop tidying. Deep in the forest lived a badger called Pete, who tidied and cleaned and kept everything neat. He tidied the flowers by checking each patch and snipping off any that didn't quite match. There he is. All these lovely blue flowers, and there's a yellow one, so he decides that one doesn't match. He's got to go. He tidied the fox by grooming his fur. He untangled each knot and each twig and each burr. He tidied the birds from the big to the small by brushing their beaks and then bathing them all. Now he's got some special bird bubble bath there. He picked up stray sticks. He swept and he rubbed. He polished the rocks and he scoured and he scrubbed. And there he is, look, hoovering up all the leaves with his special Pete vacuum cleaner. So when a leaf fell, well, can you see all the leaves falling? It's autumn there, so all the leaves are falling off the trees. What's Pete going to do? Pete tidied up. And look what's happened. He's got a mountain of black bags full of leaves. But still, he wasn't happy. Now the trees looked bare and scrappy. And so, to make it all look neat, Pete undertook a mighty feat. He dug up every single tree. But then it rained. There was a flood. There he is in his dinghy, and he's got his big yellow umbrella. And afterwards, a lot of mud. Oh, goodness. There he is with his mop and his bucket, trying to clean up all the mud. Pete called in the diggers. He called in the mixers. He called in the concrete, the rakers, the fixers. And look what we've got now. No mud, no leaves, no mess, no trees. Perfectly tidy and perfectly neat. This forest is practically perfect, said Pete. Looking very happy now, isn't he? What do you think? Not really a forest now, is it? Oh, I'm hungry, he thought. I deserve a treat. So he hunted around for something to eat. But the beetles and worms that he usually found were under the concrete, deep in the ground. You see this little worm there? There's another one. Oh, they can't get out, can you? Pete can't reach them because there's a big lot of concreted over. And so Pete decided to go home instead. If he couldn't have dinner, he'd go straight to bed. But when he arrived and took out his key, there wasn't a door where the door used to be. Uh-oh. It's all been concreted over. There's where he lives. There's his bed. And there's his armchair. And there's all the nice things. There's lots of worms there he could eat. But he can't get down to his set, which is what we call a badger's home. Because, wow, it's all concrete. Later that night, Pete tossed and he turned. His belly was empty. It rumbled and churned. As he lay in his mixer, wide awake, he started to think, I've made a mistake. So, the very next morning, when it got light, he set about trying to put everything right. Drilling up all the concrete. Then the animals came from the strong to the weak, and they lent him a paw or a claw or a beak. They put everything back as it always had been, but maybe less ordered and not quite as clean. And Pete, well, he promised to tidy up less. But if he succeeded is anyone's guess. There they are, all his friends having a picnic. They've got worms and beetles and leaves and flowers, all the yummy things that animals like to eat. Well, what do you think? There he is. Look, he's got his hoover out again. He has to be very careful. I think his friends will keep him right now, won't they? They'll not let him tidy up quite so much. I think he realised that it was much nicer to have a forest with trees and flowers and animals and bugs and worms than to have just concrete. Because then it isn't a forest at all, is it? So if you like that story, if you follow the links, you can find some things that you can do. There's some finger painting, and there's also, if you go for a walk, maybe you go for a walk, maybe you've got a forest near where you live, you could go for a walk and find some of the animals and some of the things that are in the story. There's a big picture with all the things. You could find some birds and some, maybe you probably wouldn't find a badger because they don't come out till it's very dark. So you'd have to go in the night time if you wanted to see one of them. But you might find some of the other things. So that's something you could do. So these books, if you wanted to borrow them, you could go along, you could click and collect on the Monmouthshire Library site and go along tomorrow, Thursday, or next Tuesday and have these books to take home and look at them at home, which would be good. I've got some more to show you, just in case you want some ideas of books that you could have. Here's a nice one. This is called 5 Minutes More by Marta Altez. Now this book is by the same lady that wrote Little Monkey, which if you remember quite a long time ago, we had that story. So that's a lovely story that you might like to look at. And I've got two about tea, going for tea. Here's one's called Chimpanzees for Tea, which looks great fun. It's about chimpanzees and lots of their fun hurrying home for tea and making quite a mess. Look at that. And then there's another one about tea. This one's called Tea with the Queen, Squishy McFluff the Invisible Cat. Can you see in the front picture, there's a little girl called Ava, and there's her invisible cat. The Queen can't see, but Ava can see. That looks like an adventure, doesn't it? And then this is a funny one. This one's called Upside Down Babies. And it's all about mummies and babies that get muddled up and then they don't go with the same mummy. So they get a little bit muddled up. But in the end, I think it all comes right. There's pictures of the babies all tumbling all over the place. And there's pictures of all the animals. There, look, they're a bit muddled up there. So that's a nice story. That one might make you laugh. And this is a nice one. I like this one. This is called Don't Worry, Little Crab. It's about a little crab and a big crab who looks after them. And he lives by the sea. And one day, a big wave comes along, and little crab is a little bit frightened. But big crab helps him to be brave. That's good, isn't it? And then one more to show you. This one's called The Diddle That Dummed. It's all about, well, it's a musical story, all about some musical notes. And it's by the man that also wrote this story that you might know, called Oi Frog, and by another man that's illustrated called Fred Blunt. So that's some stories that you might like to borrow from Abergavenny Library if you live near enough to come along on a Tuesday or a Thursday to pick them up. If you don't, I'm sure you can find these books in your library, wherever that is. So I look forward to seeing you next week with 2 more stories. In the meantime, I want you to please take care and stay safe. And I'll see you next Wednesday.